When a wealthy man takes into his hands the ink and the seal, when he leans over parchment and with deliberate hand makes the signature that transfers not only property, but the breath of his dominion into another's custody. The world does not see the thunder of that moment, but heaven does, and the earth beneath your feet quivers with meaning though it makes no sound. For trust is never a trivial currency. It is minted in the furnace of long trial and borne upon the weight of invisible fidelity. And to be the one into whose name that authority is written is to be set upon a precipice where the air is thinner and every step more perilous. Men imagine that riches are the essence of this act. They speak in whispers about vaults and titles, about lands and shares. Yet those are but the shadow of the true thing, for the essence is not coin but confidence, not assets but assurance, and the mighty mystery lies in this. That one man, tested by years, surrounded by counselors, hardened in the arena of worldly craft, should place the scepter of his will into the hand of another. Not compelled by force nor lured by bribery, but by a decision wrought in the deep chamber of discernment, as though he heard a summons from a place beyond himself. What a peril it is to stand in such a place, to feel that invisible crown pressed upon your head, when you yourself know your imperfections, your faults, your doubts that visit you in the midnight hour, yet the ink dries, the paper folds, the power changes hands, and the world will reckon you as one arrayed with authority that you did not forge, but was placed upon you like a mantle. It is a strange thing that trust, invisible as air, should weigh more heavily than gold, for gold can be counted, divided, even squandered, but trust, once imparted, clings to your very marrow. It obliges you in every glance and every word. It follows you into silence. It makes of you either a guardian or a traitor. That wealthy man, he may be aged and wise, or young and vigorous, yet in that moment he is as a father handing over the keys of his household, the watchman's lantern, the shepherd's staff, and it is as though he whispers, "Guard what is mine as though it were your own life." And you, though trembling, cannot escape the echo of that summons. You may try to reduce it to a transaction. You may hide behind the clauses of law and the scribbles of signatures. Yet the inner voice will speak louder than any attorney or judge. You have been trusted. You must now prove worthy. What does the world see? Perhaps only another contract, another shifting of property. What does eternity see? A trial greater than wealth, a stage upon which a soul is weighed. For with authority comes the test of whether one will serve the giver or betray him, whether one will be a channel or a thief, whether one will rise into the nobility of stewardship or sink into the shadows of exploitation. The wonder of it all is that such trust cannot be purchased. It is not awarded to the most eloquent nor the strongest. It is not achieved by schemes nor inherited like blood. It is given, mysteriously, almost sacramentally, by one who discerns something in the other, a spark of reliability, a fragrance of integrity, sometimes unknown even to the bearer. And when it is given, it transforms the one who receives it, for even if yesterday you were counted among the ordinary, today you stand apart. You carry in your pocket the seal of another's destiny. You hold in your hand the instrument by which his name will act in the world, and thus your every gesture is no longer merely your own, but another's as well. This double life begins, this mingling of your identity with his trust, and you must now tread carefully, for every careless act is no longer your own folly alone, but a blow against the confidence placed in you. Many will look upon the one so entrusted and imagine his fortune increased, his prestige elevated, his influence multiplied, and indeed, the temptation is great to glory in that appearance, to walk with shoulders high and eyes proud, as though one had earned the crown of command. Yet the true reality is the opposite. He has not been exalted but burdened, not adorned but charged, not liberated but bound. For the ink of power is not light but heavy, and every line upon the parchment is a chain that ties him to duty. To think otherwise is to court disaster. To imagine that the transfer of power is the enlargement of liberty rather than the narrowing of path, for the narrow path it is, where one must balance upon the edge of selfish desire and selfless duty. And it is here, in this subtle exchange, that the mystery deepens. For authority in the world is rarely clean. It comes entwined with temptation, with whispers that say, "Now you may take what was his and call it yours. Now you may shape the future to your own comfort." And such whispers are not loud. They creep like ivy, slowly wrapping around the heart, until one forgets that what was entrusted was not a gift for indulgence, but a charge for preservation. The wealthy man may still breathe, may still walk, may still watch from a distance, but even if he were to vanish into death, the voice of his trust would remain, echoing against the conscience of the one who carries his authority. That is why the true weight is not measured in courts nor in accounts, but in the silent tribunal of the heart, where night after night the bearer of power must answer, "Am I faithful, or am I false?" And perhaps it is in this, more than in wealth or status, that the transfer of power becomes a parable for the human condition. For are we not all entrusted, in ways unseen, with something not our own? The breath in our lungs, the time in our days, the earth beneath our feet, the companions at our side. None of these are forged by us, yet all are placed in our care as though signed over by a greater hand. We live upon a transfer of authority already, though we dress it in other names. And so, when the wealthy man entrusts his power of attorney to you, it is but a visible echo of that deeper truth, that trust, once given, makes you more than you were, and yet binds you to more than you imagined, and the mystery of it, like a great shadow cast across the floor of your life, is that you cannot return it unspoiled without becoming something greater yourself. When power ceases to be the ornament of privilege and begins instead to weigh upon the heart as a sacred responsibility, the soul is compelled into a transformation deeper than the shift of circumstance and sharper than the turning of fortune. For authority held as possession breeds vanity, but authority received as trust births reverence. And it is this very crossing from pride into stewardship that becomes the furnace in which one is remade. The world will flatter you, calling you fortunate, exalting your name for being the one upon whom such power has descended. Yet in the quiet corners of your spirit you will hear a different summons, a voice that strips away illusions, reminding you that this mantle is not yours to wear as you please, but yours to guard, as though the eyes of eternity were upon you. And indeed they are, for once you have been set in this place, you cannot return unchanged. You cannot treat lightly what has been sealed with such gravity, and you cannot escape the piercing truth that every act henceforth is judged not only by what it accomplishes for yourself, but by how faithfully it reflects the duty bound into you. It is a painful thing, this transformation, because it begins not with triumph but with exposure, not with the swelling of the chest, but with the trembling of the knees, for you begin to see with new clarity the flaws within you, the selfish inclinations, the hidden desires for advantage, the longing to bend circumstances to your comfort. Before, such impulses seemed small, forgivable, even inconsequential. Now, under the light of entrusted authority, they loom as dangers, cliffs along the narrow path that could hurl not only you but the wealth and honor of another into ruin. Thus responsibility becomes a mirror, merciless and luminous, showing you not what you wish to see, but what you must confront, and in that confrontation the reshaping of your character begins. You may resist it, clinging to your former ease, seeking to twist responsibility into privilege once more. But such resistance will corrode you within, for the voice of duty will not be silenced, and the longer you deny it, the louder its accusations will echo in the chambers of your conscience. Transformation demands more than denial of self. It demands surrender, a laying down of one's old identity, so that a new one may be clothed upon you. And this surrender is not a moment but a daily relinquishing, like a series of deaths, small but cumulative, through which the ego weakens and a higher integrity strengthens. It is here that power reveals its paradox, for those who treat it as privilege lose themselves, but those who embrace it as sacred responsibility find themselves remade into guardians, shepherds, stewards of a nobility not born of wealth, but but of faithfulness. And faithfulness, though less glittering to the world than fortune, is in truth the greater treasure, because it does not decay with time, nor can it be taken by theft, nor does it dissolve with the passing of earthly titles. Every moment of decision becomes an altar where the offering is your will, and upon that altar you must choose again and again to set aside ease for duty, convenience for integrity, personal advantage for the preservation of another's trust. You begin to notice that what once seemed insignificant, how you sign a document, how you speak in negotiation, how you treat the least of those connected to the estate, now carries immeasurable consequence, because each act either upholds the sacred charge or betrays it. And as you practice faithfulness in the smallest matters, you find your soul strengthened for the greater ones, as though a secret schooling were at work within you, teaching you to walk uprightly not by the flatteries of the crowd, but by the whispers of conscience. There will be moments of loneliness in this transformation, for those who look upon you from the outside will not understand. They will envy the wealth. They will admire the influence. They will even resent the honor given you, but they will not perceive the inner crucible, the daily dying to self, the sleepless nights of weighing whether you have been true. And in this solitude you will learn a different companionship, the companionship of responsibility itself, which speaks not as a flatterer, but as a stern friend, pressing you toward maturity whether you desire it or not. This stern friend will not let you return to the days of light-heartedness, for once you have been given much you cannot pretend you have little, and once you have been seen as worthy of trust you cannot pretend you are free to squander it. Thus you are driven forward, like ore into the fire, until what is base within you burns away, and what is pure shines forth. The transformation is not instant, nor is it comfortable. It comes through failures as well as successes, through stumbles as well as strides, yet each time you fall the responsibility itself calls you to rise, reminding you that you do not carry only your own name, but another's as well. This dual identity, your own mingled with the one who entrusted you, becomes the very means of your purification, for you cannot think of yourself alone without betraying the sacred charge, and so, unwillingly at first, you begin to think more broadly, to live more outwardly, to regard your decisions through the lens of another's welfare. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, self-centeredness gives way to stewardship, indulgence yields to vigilance, and what began as the heavy weight of obligation becomes the strong backbone of integrity. And yet, let no one mistake this transformation as mere moral improvement, as though it were only a matter of discipline or education. It is far deeper, for it alters not just the habits of action, but the very posture of the soul. Before, you may have walked through life as though the world revolved around your desires, interpreting events according to what they gave or denied you. After, you walk as though every step is measured by how well you guard what has been placed in your care, and this shift is nothing less than the re-centering of existence from self to responsibility. In this re-centering lies the true mark of nobility, a nobility not of bloodlines or fortunes, but of character forged under the solemnity of trust. And should you endure in this path, you will find that transformation yields a strange joy, a joy not rooted in the pleasures of privilege, but in the peace of faithfulness, the calm that comes from knowing you have not betrayed the charge entrusted to you. It is a quieter joy, less dazzling than the pleasures of wealth, but more enduring, for it lingers when applause fades, when fortune fluctuates, when time wears away the emblems of worldly success. This joy whispers that though you were tested, you did not falter, though you were tempted, you did not yield, though you were unworthy, you became worthy through faithfulness. And in that whisper is the assurance that transformation was not in vain, that the soul which once trembled under the weight of responsibility has become strong enough to carry it with grace, and that what began as burden has ended as blessing. There is an eternal witness that attends every act of trust, every sealing of a contract, every transference of power, and though men may think it is the signatures and the witnesses in the room that give binding force to the moment, the true witness is far higher, far more enduring, and far more searching than any human eye could be. For earthly courts weigh papers, weigh testimony, weigh evidence. But eternity weighs the soul, and it is not deceived by appearances nor distracted by pageantry. When the wealthy man transfers his authority into your hand, eternity does not tally the lands nor count the coins, nor measure the expanse of the properties, but it bends low to observe the stewardship of your heart. The way you bear this mantle, the fidelity with which you guard what was not yours but has been entrusted for a season. Men will speak in sums, in values, in ledgers filled with numbers, but eternity speaks in faithfulness, in honor, in integrity, in the secret intentions that no banker's ledger can reveal. You may walk among men and be praised for what you control. You may be envied for the power to sign with another's name. You may be courted by flatterers who desire favor from your position, but the eternal witness regards none of this as weighty, for crowns and titles fall into dust. Palaces crumble, and wealth, however vast, passes through time like sand through an open palm. What remains, what is weighed upon scales unseen, is the manner in which you bore the charge, whether with selfish ambition or with solemn fidelity. If you squander, eternity records it. If you preserve, eternity blesses it. If you betray, eternity pronounces judgment. And unlike the courts of men, this witness cannot be bribed, cannot be deceived, cannot be silenced, for it is bound not by time, but by truth itself. It is a fearful thing to consider that every action under this trust is observed, not merely in its outward execution, but in its inward motive. For men may see you manage affairs with competence and call you successful. Yet if in your heart you use another's wealth for your own vanity, eternity knows and records it as betrayal. Likewise, men may see you falter in some small matter and call you foolish. Yet if your heart was earnest, if your intent was pure, eternity crowns that intent as faithfulness. This is the great reversal, that eternity does not measure the size of your accomplishment, but the sincerity of your stewardship, not the magnitude of wealth preserved, but the purity with which it was preserved. And in this lies both comfort and terror, for you cannot escape the scrutiny of that eternal gaze, and yet you can be assured that nothing faithful, however small, will be forgotten. The eternal witness does not sleep, does not fade with time, does not leave you to walk unseen. You may think yourself alone when you deliberate at midnight over decisions that affect estates, or when you hold the pen in trembling hand, before you place a signature that shifts destinies. But you are never alone, for the witness is there, searching not the ink but the intention, not the flourish of the signature, but the steadfastness of the heart. And it is this very presence that compels transformation, for when you know you are seen beyond the surface, you can no longer live by appearances. You must live by truth. The flatterers may desert you, the wealthy man himself may depart this world, but still the gaze of eternity rests upon you, and this gaze is more enduring than life, more searching than death. Think not that eternity is harsh or pitiless, for though it is searching, it is also just. Though it is unbending, it is also merciful. For it does not condemn the weak for their weakness, but the unfaithful for their betrayal. It does not despise the trembling steward, but it records with joy every act of sacrifice, every choice to guard another's trust, even at personal cost. The eternal witness rejoices in integrity as the sun rejoices to rise, and though no crowd may applaud your secret honesty, though no chronicle may record the hours you spent guarding another's welfare, the witness engraves it in a book that cannot be erased. And when all else has passed away, when the wealth itself lies scattered, when the papers crumble into dust, the record of your stewardship remains unspoiled, incorruptible, awaiting its day of revelation. It is this reality that makes stewardship a holy calling, for you are not merely the custodian of coin, but the custodian of your own soul, and how you treat what belongs to another is the proving ground of what you truly are. Wealth will pass through many hands. Titles will be transferred from one generation to the next, but what eternity waits to see is whether you, in your brief moment, upheld the sacredness of trust? Did you treat authority as a tool for self, or as a gift for service? Did you exploit the power of another's name, or did you honor it with careful vigilance? These are the questions written in invisible ink upon every document, upon every transaction, upon every decision, and though men may not read them, eternity reads them clearly. The eternal witness is not bound by time, and so it sees the full story, not just the fragment you now inhabit. You see only today's choice, today's temptation, today's pressure, but eternity sees the ripples stretching into tomorrow, into generations yet unborn, into consequences you cannot imagine. Thus, when you choose faithfulness in what seems small, eternity rejoices not only for you, but for all who will be touched by your choice, perhaps long after you are gone. And when you choose betrayal, eternity mourns not only for you, but for all who will bear the wound of that treachery, even those who will never know your name. Such is the gravity of stewardship that your decisions echo beyond your life, and only the eternal witness can truly measure their reach. You may be tempted to believe that wealth itself gives you significance, that by holding the keys of another's fortune you have entered into greatness. But this is illusion. Wealth can vanish, authority can be revoked, your name may be forgotten by men. Only faithfulness endures. Only integrity is remembered by the eternal witness. To live for wealth is to build on sand. To live for stewardship is to build on stone, for when storms come, the wealth will be washed away, but the record of your stewardship will stand unshaken. And when the wealthy man who entrusted you with his power passes into silence, when the voices of flatterers fade, when your own strength fails, it will not be the riches preserved nor the influence wielded that defines you, but the testimony of eternity, whether you were faithful or false. So let the world say what it will, let men praise or despise, let fortunes rise or fall, for none of this alters the gaze that truly matters. Live each day as though every action were inscribed before the eternal witness, because it is. Sign your name as though the pen dipped not only into ink, but into your very conscience, because it does. Guard the trust as though it were more precious than gold, because in truth it is, for gold belongs to time, but trust belongs to eternity. And in that faithfulness, you will find a strange freedom. For you no longer need to chase the shifting approval of men. You need only be true before the one witness that never fails. And in the end, when all things are weighed and measured, you will see that the eternal record does not shine with the wealth you managed, but with the soul you became.